guys, it's Reagan, and today I'm here to do a new and exciting video. At least I hope you think so. And today I'm going to be talking about the strangest or weirdest books I have ever read. Now I want to caveat this video before I even get started, basically saying that while I'm calling these books strange or weird, that doesn't mean I didn't like them. In fact, a lot of the books I'm actually going to talk about today are some of my favorite books I've ever read. And actually, their weird elements is probably some of my favorite parts of the story. In curating this list, I actually realized I read a lot of strange books. I think strange plot points is something that really drives me to pick up a story. So I'm actually really excited to show these books to you today. And yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. The first book I'm going to be talking about is Sourdough by Robin Sloan. And now this book actually kind of inspired this video because this is quite the peculiar little book. This follows our main character Lois, who lives in San Francisco, and she's a programmer of robotic arms. She works incredibly long hours programming code every single day, and honestly she's not very happy with her life. One day she stumbles upon this takeout menu of a restaurant in her neighborhood that offers two items, very spicy soup and sourdough bread. She orders these items, she falls in love with the food. However, this mysterious cafe of a very mysterious culture decides to move on, but they grant Lois, their #1 customer, with the sourdough starter, which is like this yeasty, watery mixture that's used to make bread. From there, Lois kind of begins this journey of falling deeply in love with bread making. Something strange begins to happen with their bread, and that is faces are baked into them, and the starter itself seems to be kind of alive in a way that's not just like bacteria and yeast living in water, more like it has feelings kind of thing. This book is incredibly charming. It's very endearing. You absolutely love Lois and her journey. It's also, as I've mentioned, very peculiar, and I feel like those elements really work very well in this story. Following Lois uncover her passion, but also kind of get wrapped up in some weird bread mysteries was definitely a great time, and I would highly recommend this peculiar book. But yes, it was very strange. The book I'm going to recommend is Midwinter Blonde by Marcus Sedgwick. This is probably my favorite Marcus Sedgwick book, though I very much enjoy a lot of his novels and I recommend them a lot. This to me is also perhaps the strangest one I've read. It's a very interesting and very folk-heavy style of a narrative. It's essentially taking place in the exact same location, and we follow a multitude of different perspectives through the scape of time. I'm talking like ancient, primitive time to the far future, and there's something about this particular location that connects all these people together in a very weird and dark and mysterious way. This book is eerie. It's strange in the way that you have really no idea what's going on or who any of these people are, and this particular place seems to hold some strange magical element to it that really drives you and keeps you pushing through this book because it's just so captivating in that way. It's just a very interesting and bizarre little novel. I really enjoyed it, and it's definitely strange. The novel I have to recommend is Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. This is another very short, peculiar book. I feel like I read a lot of short, strange stories oftentimes. This is a book that has a very heavy fairy tale element and a very heavy nostalgia element. We follow our main character who visits his childhood home and kind of like falls into the pond that's there, and from there this man is transported back to his childhood, and reality begins to bend as he kind of remembers a tragic event that happened at this location 40 years prior. This is a story that is wrapped in fairy tale narrative. It feels like a tale lost in time. It's also very strange because you don't quite know what is reality and what our main character is actually experiencing in this moment. It makes you definitely question the reliability of the story itself. It's captivating, it's strange, it's dark, but it's very, very beautiful, as one would expect from a Neil Gaiman story. So dark and dreary today. I'm so sorry, everyone. Also, sorry about the glare on my glasses. Maybe I should take them off. The next book I'm going to talk about is More Than This by Patrick Ness. As many of you guys know, Patrick Ness is one of my favorite authors, and this is actually one of my favorite books by him. This is a very strange science fiction-esque story. We follow our main character Seth, who in the very first page, in the very first chapter, dies quite violently and quite tragically. We don't know the circumstances surrounding his death or what brought him to that point, but we do know he is dead. The next chapter, he wakes up in his old hometown completely naked, and the entire town is entirely deserted. From there, Seth is trying to figure out where and how he got to this place, where everyone is, and he also has to grapple and come to terms with his past, his life, and his experiences up to this point. This is a story that Patrick Ness deals with very real emotions and very real thematic character elements as our main character battles with his own sexual identity. But there's also this very bizarre science fiction element that carries through this whole book that adds a huge layer of suspense, unknowing, that's just really drives you through this narrative. It's very fascinating, dark, and rich. It's so good. Next book I'm gonna recommend is probably one of the strangest classics I've ever read, and I feel like it's definitely strange on purpose. This is not like this was definitely an intended part of the narrative of this story, and that is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This, of course, is a dystopian, utopian classic. It's set in a world where like everything good is used as a way to control people. Kind of the opposite of the world of 1984. So like sex, addiction, all those things are used as a way to control people. In this story, it's so strange, but man, it is so good. Everything is so pristine and everyone is so happy that it comes off in such a dark way. Obviously, Aldous Huxley is putting a mirror to our world and our society, making us reflect on what we as humans value and what that means for our society now and moving forward. Actually, one of my favorite books I've ever read, and it's where my channel quote comes from. Unlike my, about me part of the YouTube channel, I have a quote from A Brave New World. It's a really good book. Next up is a strange little, again with a little, historical fiction novel, and that is City of Thieves by David Benhoff. This is a story set during the siege of Leningrad. We follow two main characters that are tasked with an impossible task of finding eggs for the general's daughter's wedding cake during the siege of Leningrad, where basically food is so scarce, people are literally dying of starvations in the millions during this time period. Both of our main characters in this story are a little peculiar. One is an arrested poet and writer, and the other was kind of just caught in a bad place at a bad time. I say the story is strange because it's an absurd story set in a very dark and harrowing time in history. So those two things contrast in very interesting ways throughout this narrative. Obviously, the siege of Leningrad and the death that it created, and also just World War II in general, is one of the darkest times in human history. And that is contrasted in this bizarre, quirky quest that our two main characters are sent on during this time period, finding eggs for a wedding cake during something so horrible that's going on. History and society are reflected very well in this funny, quirky, and dark tale, and it's very good. Next up, I have The Nest, which is a middle grade tale about a young boy who is currently struggling with some family dramas, being that his new baby brother, who was just born, is very, very sick. And right outside his baby brother's window is a hornet's nest. And one night, the queen from this hornet's nest visits our main character in his dreams, and our main character then begins to fear and also believe that the nest is the cause of his brother's illness, and he kind of like escapes to this nest every night in his dreams. And there's also very, very weird but amazingly done illustrations throughout this story. This is a weird book. I mean, we're following a young boy who is believing that hornets are the cause of his little brother's illness. Obviously, it's a metaphor. In that metaphor and in this hornet's nest, it's a very powerful story of a young boy kind of having to come to terms with the unpredictability of illness and the potential of death, especially when it's happening to someone who is so young and closely related to him. It's a really great and powerful and impactful little book that is very strange as well. Next book I have to talk about, and that is The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender. I mean, strange is literally in the name of this book, and this is a story about a girl, Ava Lavender, who was born with wings and how she kind of lives in society with that. It's actually a greater story than that. We actually follow multiple generations of Ava Lavender's family, and each woman in this family tends to have some sort of strange magical element to them, be it wings, be it other things, and they also have like strangely tragic lives, and you see them persevere throughout this family saga, and it's a beautiful tale that's very weird but so wonderfully written, and it's very whimsical, but it is dark, and it will definitely leave you thinking. Alrighty guys, those are some of the strangest books I have ever read. Let me know down below some books you've read that are very strange, that you've either loved or hated. I would love to get some recommendations. As I said, I love strange books. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye!